Hi, Chris here, and welcome to my review of the Jumper EZBook 2. So this is a $189 laptop out of China that has a anti-glare 1080p screen. It's powered by an Atom X5 Z8300, has 4GB of RAM and a 64GB eMMC. The operating system is Windows 10, and that has a valid license, and the build of it is mostly plastic. So all along the bottom here is plastic, and it does have a little bit of a cheap feel to it. It's painted to look like alloy, and you can see that the keyboard does have quite a bit of flex. Definitely not the strongest due to the use of plastic here. Now, it's not all plastic because the lid is backed up with alloy. It doesn't have a bad feel to it. The hinge is quite solid, and the screen can go right back like so, which isn't too bad. So up here there is a 2 megapixel front-facing camera. On the right hand side we have a little LED that will light up blue when it's being charged by the DC in here. And this is a USB 3 port, mini HDMI out, and a micro SD card slot that can support up to 128GB cards. I have tested that out. And just along the front, some status LEDs and a microphone. On the left side there is a USB 2 port and a 3.5mm headphone jack. Now, the bottom of the laptop here, we have 4 rubber feet, 2 down-facing speakers, and it is plastic again with a few screws along here, and there is a little bit of flex in here. Now, the paint job they have used does scratch up easily. I already have a few scratches just from general wear and tear use, which isn't good to see so early on. Now, the screen, as mentioned, has an anti-glare coating on it. It's 1080p, and you can see outdoors here in the shade, I can still actually use it. It is quite visible, and there is very little, in fact no reflection on it, which is really good, quite practical, and definitely usable in these kind of conditions. Now, the maximum brightness is 212 lumens of brightness, which isn't the greatest, but I find it's still sufficient enough to be able to use it here in these kind of conditions. And I will go inside now and we'll have a look at it indoors. So indoors now, the screen looks really good, and I find that there is literally no reflections thanks to the anti-glare coating that it has. And the only problem really is you need to look at it straight on. So here it's looking straight at the camera, but if I move the screen down, the vertical viewing angles aren't the greatest. You can see now it looks quite washed out. But the horizontal viewing angles are quite good. That doesn't tend to happen at all. So overall, I think for the price, this is quite a good screen that a Jumper have chosen. So we see the keyboard layout is US layout, of course. Here we do have the largest shift, and you do get some options like home page up, down, and end along here, which is really good. What I don't particularly like is the placement of the delete button there, which means that sometimes I've gone to delete something and put the laptop into sleep. So not very good. So I mentioned in the beginning of the video that yes, there is a lot of flex, there is a lot of bounce. Now, the key size isn't too bad. They're 15mm by 15, and they have an approximate travel about 1.2mm. So you can do some typing on there. But if you are a serious typist, or you want to type up a lot, you're going to be typing a lot, then this probably isn't the best keyboard to be doing that on, because of the bounce and flex on here. I find to be one of the worst that I have experienced for some time. Not particularly good. Now, the trackpad is large, it's usable, it does support Windows 10 gestures, and unlike a lot of the trackpads I have tested out on laptops and 2-in-1s with keyboards from China, you often can't disable the gestures. This one you can. You do have full driver support, full setting support there. One thing that has definitely surprised me is the performance. Now, I have tested out a lot of Atom X5 Z8300 powered tablets. You would have seen probably from my videos, I'm quite familiar with how they perform, but yet I have never seen one perform as smooth and as fluid as the EZBook 2 here. I'm not really too sure why. My guess is the RAM timings perhaps are a little bit better, or the fact that it's only running 1080p screen. But just to show you here, I'm within Chrome now at the moment, and the scrolling in Chrome normally can be quite choppy, but this actually isn't too bad. And I'm able to edit articles and do some light work here without having any problems. And performance If I use now just the touchpad here, scrolling, I'm finding is quite good. You can still do the 2-finger scroll, and if I grab the scroll bar key just so I can get some more speed out of it, just to show you, that isn't actually too bad. Now remember, this is Chrome. Chrome can be quite choppy and poor running on Atoms. It doesn't seem to be bad. So I've been doing a little bit of light multitasking because I also have Edge open at the same time. And the RAM use, well, at the moment I'm using 73% of the memory because I have Chrome there. Windows Store is also open. And here I'll just run through some of the benchmarks that I did test out. So this is the 3D Mark 11 score. Very demanding. If you compare that to your gaming desktop, this score is absolutely horrible, of course. Here's the iStorm Extreme score. Now these benchmarks aren't really wonderful. The benchmarks are one thing, but actual performance definitely seems better than some of the tablets I've tested that can benchmark really well, but when in use, seem a lot more sluggish. iStorm 1.2 and the Geekbench 3 score, you could say, is maybe actually marginally higher there. And the wireless performance, it's probably hard to make out, sorry, but I got almost 40 megabits per second download and 17 upload. Now my desktop at the same time got 43 and 21, so slightly slower, but all in all not too bad there. So if I quickly move around and just open up, sorry, I have the device manager here, and show you the components we have on board. So the disk drive is a generic N card. Now I have already actually opened this laptop up and had a look. It's a 4C one. Now 4C normally aren't the fastest. It's not a known brand. It's not a Toshiba, not a Samsung, which tend to be a lot faster, or a Hynix. And the wireless chipset is a Broadcom one. So I will show you the speeds of the ports, and first the storage here. So I did benchmark the internal drive here. You can see it gets 100 read and 37 write, so not the greatest speeds there, and you'll see that the 2K speeds do suffer. So if you're installing a large program, then it might be a little bit slower, but honestly these speeds haven't been affecting the performance of the EZBook 2 here at all. It just seems to be very quick to boot, very quick to shut down, and all in all quite smooth and fluid. So here's my 128GB micro SD card. It's a Samsung Pro Plus one. And those speeds there, they're okay, but I have been able to get a little bit faster. And the USB 2 port, typical USB 2 speeds, that was using a SanDisk USB 3 Extreme. Now that same USB Extreme can get proper USB 3 speeds. Now the ports on this won't power any external hard drives. This is one of my major complaints with this particular laptop. So here I have a 1TB Western Digital My Passport Ultra, and I have some files that I want to back up or restore. If I plug it into the USB 3 port here on the side, it will turn on, and you can see here that it is flashing, but it will simply just keep powering on and off, and never actually be able to fully spin up the drive and allow me to access it. So it doesn't work. Now it's not affecting just 1TB drives, it's affecting everything I've tried. I've tried in a 250GB SSD in a 2.5mm inch case, and I've also tried a 500GB drive. It doesn't work either. So bear that in mind. If you are looking at one of these, check to see with the seller that the USB ports can power external hard drives. So we just do a quick audio test here to see how the speakers sound. Now they are facing downwards, so they sound a little bit muffled, and the volume output of them isn't the greatest. So I have an embedded video here within Chrome, and we just wait for that to load in and see how the speakers sound.
In this box right here is the T-Class X80 Power. Now it's very similar to the X80 Pro that combine.com, and they sent it out with SF Express.
So they're not really that loud. Definitely I've heard a lot better. I have heard worse, but these aren't that great at all. So if I lift it up,
Took about a week to get here and didn't have to pay any That might have actually helped there. So let's have a look and see how well they packed it up.
So even lifting it up there, it doesn't improve the sound quality much. Now the 3.5mm headphone jack does have a tiny little bit of static and hiss on it. It's not that great of a problem. It's only minor, I can just hear it. And it does support microphones, which is good, because the microphone is located here on the keyboard. And if you're speaking on Skype, it's definitely better to use a headset with a microphone in it. Now I wanted to quickly test out a 4K clip. Now this is going to be streamed with YouTube, and this is running Edge. If you try this in Chrome, it'll be very choppy. So I've set the settings to 4K, so that's 2160p, full screen, and I have the stats for nerds there enabled. And it has dropped 2 frames, but the internet, the wireless is keeping up, and that is actually playing that quite smooth. Let's have a look, see now if I can skip ahead. Seems to be handling that okay. So on the taskbar here down here, I do have Task Manager running. So the CPU is running at 60, Microsoft Edge, well around 10%. That is still playing there in the background. So Edge is definitely handling 4K streaming just fine. Now if I try the same in Chrome, we'll close this one down. I don't think an Atom can handle 2 4K videos at the same time. So close that down now, let this load up and see how it performs in Chrome. Okay, so at the moment it's running fine, but that's probably because it's only running at 480p, sorry. So 2160. Full screen, stats for nerds. And it seems a little more choppy. It's definitely having a few problems there. Have a look now at the CPU use is peaking at almost 100 there. So Chrome is taking up now 65% of the CPU. So definitely you don't want to be streaming 4K in Chrome. So how's the battery life here on the EZBook 2? Surprisingly good. At the moment I'm at 52%, and the laptop has been running for just over 3 hours. Now what I've been doing is I've been doing some multi-tabbing in Chrome. I've been using Edge. I've been doing and recording some of my content while running this continuously with the screen on. And the screen has been set to actually between 100 and 80%, which isn't bad at all. So I think battery life you can expect to get around 6 hours of web use. Now watching videos, I tested it out with a video, and if you just watch a video, continually loop it, then you're looking around 7 hours, which really is quite good, because why I haven't reviewed any laptops up until now from China is because they've all had extremely poor battery life. There's so many of them out there that literally only get 2 or 3 hours of battery life, which is just not even usable at all. But no, the EZBook here, definitely one of its pros is the battery life. And to fully charge the Jumper EZBook 2 here, when it's powered off will take just under 4 hours, and if you're going to be using it when it's powered on and charge it up, that can range from 6 to 7 hours depending on what you're doing. So it's very slow when in use to charge, and once charged though, it will stay at 100% and just run off AC, which is good. Now here is a quick sample of the front-facing 2 megapixel webcam that it has on there. It's okay for Skype, and it's actually probably better than a lot of the webcams you get in most name brand laptops you see. It does struggle a little once you get into lower light conditions, becomes more pixely, but for video chat use like Skype, I think it's perfectly fine. So now for some gaming tests. Now this title here is GT Racing 2, and I'm controlling it with an Xbox 360 controller, so let's see how it runs. definitely quite stuttery at times, but it is playable. It's running in 1080p, so definitely pushing the Atom X5 Z8300 very hard. Next up is Counter-Strike Global Offensive. So these are the video settings we're going to go with. So 1280 by 720, 720p, everything on low. Let's see how it runs the game. Okay, so this is running around 20 frames per second. Seems a little too demanding, this resolution. I'm going to lower it down now to 800 times 600. Okay, so now 1080 times 600. Looks a little bit crappy on the screen, but at least we're getting about 40 frames per second, well, at least at the moment. And I'm about to die. Dead. So at the moment, while this might seem playable, you can see now the frames per second has dropped down to 21. The hotter this system starts to get, it will get up to 85 degrees, the lower the frame rate. So right now I can feel it's getting very hot, scorching temperatures there. 46 degrees. 47 even. So I'll move on now and test out League of Legends. So I'm just going to play a simple game here with one bot on my team and two on the opposition. Summon his rift map and see how that runs. Okay, so the default settings are 1080p and it's already running at 19 frames per second. That's just a little too slow, so I'm going to have to change that. It's actually on high, so if I put that onto lows, let's see if it can run on very low. So now with very low settings, we're actually getting 40, wow, no, it's dropping down again. 26 frames per second. And the game hasn't even started yet, so not looking too good. We'll see how that goes. If not, I will lower the resolution down to 720p. So I'll wait for my little minions to catch up. I can move around the map there relatively fast. It's dipping down now to 18 frames per second. So 1080p, definitely too demanding. I'll lower this now down to 720p, see how that changes things. So drop that all the way down to actually 1024 by 768. Let's see how that runs on very low. Definitely doesn't look as pretty, but the frame rate now is just over 30 frames per second. But still dipping down there. I do think the system is starting to get too hot. In fact, it feels very toasty around this area. See, that is now getting up to 50 degrees. Now that is very hot to the touch. And the CPU will be no doubt at about 85 degrees. So we'll exit out of League of Legends here now, and we'll have a look at the temperatures. So after the gaming session that I had for this review, you can see temperatures got up to a maximum of 85 degrees, which is just too hot. But according to this, there was no thermal throttling, but touching the laptop around this part here is very hot, 50 degrees to the touch, and this was running for 49 minutes. So 49 minutes, and you can see really those temperatures aren't acceptable. So to quickly recap my findings here, I think the 1080p screen is quite a nice screen considering the price range here. Not bad at all. It's anti-glare. Okay, it's not the brightest, but it definitely does the job. And the battery life, we've got decent battery life. We can get up to 7 hours. That is not bad at all, considering again the price range of this particular laptop here. And the Atom X5 Z8300 performs a little more fluid, a little more snappier than other devices I have tested with the same chipset, which is good to see. It has some good optimization there. So the downsides, obviously, it does feel plasticky. It doesn't have a super ultra premium build to it. It's a little on the cheap side, and that keyboard flex could be a deal breaker to some people that want to do some serious typing on it for long periods. I don't think you're going to be very happy with the bounce that it has. And the other concerning thing for me was definitely it does get just a little too hot to the touch, and getting up to 85 degrees. If you're going to try some light gaming on this for long periods, it is really going to get just a little too hot, and that's a bit concerning there. And finally, I couldn't power any external hard drives. Now this could be just down to my unit. I'm not really too sure until I get a second unit to confirm whether that is a problem affecting all models or just my unit, but not good to see at all there, and that is definitely a deal breaker for me personally. If Jumper can fix those issues, then we have a fairly solid laptop here considering the price. Thank you so much for watching this review, and hopefully I will see you back in the channel with more up and coming reviews on tech from China.